This little notebook has been my daily companion for the last 9 months. It's made by the company Leuchtturm 1917, and it is an A6 sized pocket notebook with a hard cover and a little elasticized band on the front to keep it shut, about 180 some odd pages inside of it, and it even has a little envelope pocket in the back of it as well, which you can use to store a bunch of physical keepsakes that you find on your travels. I've loved having this notebook in my life for the majority of 2024, and the reason I'm making this video today is actually because I have officially run out of space inside of it, which means I'm going to open up a brand new one, and I figured it'd be kind of interesting to chat about the differences that I notice after roughly 9 months of use on this one versus opening a brand new one over here, and overall just kind of discuss why I've loved having a notebook in my life again. A little bit of context for anyone who is new to the channel. I made a short film back in January of 2024 talking about the practice of finding old habits that you kind of had in your life at one point but fell away, and reclaiming them and incorporating them back into your life again. The example that I used for myself in that video was pocket notebooks. These are actually some of the ones that I used for my years in college. They're classic field note notebooks, which I think a lot of people have heard of, made by the Field Notes brand, created by Aaron Draplin, who's one of my favorite graphic designers. And these things are amazing. As you can see, I really put them through their paces. Some of them ended up falling apart a bit, but these were amazing. And I loved having them on my journeys and just keeping a physical object that could be an extension of my brain. I used it to organize thoughts, creative ideas, shot list ideas for photography projects and different videos that I was making. And I loved having that. And I did that for probably 6 or 7 years straight between college and then the couple of years after graduation. But that habit fell away. And I realized earlier this year that I was missing it quite a lot. So I made that short film to talk about that idea of like reclaiming old habits, but also to kind of keep myself accountable to incorporating this practice back into my life, because it really provides me a lot of value. And I think it's a really good thing for a lot of artists in particular to have more physical objects to organize our lives, because so much of it is dominated by screens. And this feels like a really good way to just combat that a little bit. Primarily, I've used this notebook in a work context, so roughly 5 days a week to just kind of encapsulate my work week and dump all of my to-do lists, all of my thoughts, ideas, notes from client calls, all those sorts of things to keep a physical log of everything going on inside of my business. I think on a more existential level, I love being able to flip through all of the pages in this book and just see what my year has looked like so far, and to see every single task kept track of in a tangible way that I've knocked out, completed. It just feels, I think, a little more gratifying to keep track of those things here rather than inside of a notes app on your computer, or Notion is a tool that I use to organize other parts of my business. But I've always disliked digital task to-do list type things because, yeah, they're really convenient, but there's something about it that doesn't feel as satisfying or real when I complete something. I don't know if that's just me, but I don't know. I feel like I'm getting more done when I'm using a notebook, and that might be entirely a placebo effect, but I don't know. I like when there are so many things that are kept track of digitally and oriented to screens these days. I don't know. There's something that feels just more gratifying about keeping track of those tasks in a book instead. This isn't going to be a comprehensive review of this specific notebook necessarily, but I will say I really love it. I think it's an excellent notebook. Some of the things that I enjoy the most about it are what I mentioned earlier, is that elasticized band to keep it shut. Really enjoy the little envelope pocket in the back too. I've used that to collect different physical tokens from travel and just kind of keeping track of them all in one place when they wouldn't fit in my wallet or anything else. And I also appreciate how many pages are inside of these as well. The paper itself feels really nice and premium, but they still pack, what is it? It's like 187 pages inside of this. So you can really get your money's worth out of these books if you're using, like one a day essentially during a work week. It's really nice. I didn't mention earlier, but the specific one that I have been using is the dotted grid paper. They do have I think a ruled option and then a totally blank option too. I personally really like the dots because it feels like a good middle ground between like enough structure that I can write sentences easily and have a general sense of what's level and keep everything even. But there's not so much structure that I can't like draw if I want to, or sketch out ideas for different design projects or clients that I'm working with. It kind of is that sweet spot middle ground where I can do a lot with it, and it just worked really nicely for me. So this one, obviously, that I've been referencing is the one with about 9 months of use on it. It's broken in really nicely, and right off the bat, actually, as I'm opening up this new one, I'm remembering how like crisp and clean it felt in the beginning. The cover has like a really nice matte texture to it, whereas this one has, after many months and weeks of use and like hand oils, as gross as that sounds, and like in and out of backpacks and jackets and pockets and all that, it just kind of like it gets almost like a little grippy over time, whereas it's like a very like matte smooth texture on it to start. And the other thing, actually, I'd kind of forgotten about as well, is that they do take a little bit of time to break in. The spine itself is pretty rigid in the beginning. This, after, again, 9 months of use, it kind of like lays flat and stays open, which I really, really like. This, I kind of had to work it in after a couple weeks. It would begin to do that. But right now it's like pretty, obviously rigid. And that's really all it wants to do right now. So it takes a little bit of time to break it in, but I love the way it feels after that initial break-in period has been done. Additionally, I forgot about this as well. Something I didn't mention in the beginning as far as features are concerned is that these little notebooks also have, actually they come standard with bookmarks kind of attached to the spine of the book right here. I ended up cutting these off because I personally didn't find a ton of use for them in a notebook of this size. I could see how, bookmarks would be good for maybe a larger notebook, one that's like thicker and just like larger, more of like a planner style thing. But for a notebook of this size, I didn't personally find a lot of use. And actually, if anything, I kind of found them to be a little bit in my way after a while because I cut the ends because they're attached right here. I don't know if you can see that. You cut them and then you take like a match or a lighter to them to kind of keep the ends nice and clean. But even when I did that, they would kind of fray after a little bit of time and then start to unravel, and I'd have to cut them again and do the whole process. And it ended up feeling unnecessary to have them there in the first place. So I snipped them off at the top here. And I personally enjoyed the user experience a little bit more without having them attached, but your mileage may vary. You might really like that as part of the notebook. And if you do, that's amazing. It's here for you if you are interested in that. And then one other thing that I think is really nice that Leuchtturm includes is this little labeling kit. So I actually finally get to do it for the first time now, but this little sticker set comes with the notebook itself, and you can use it to label the book when you are done. So for archival purposes, you can attach one of these stickers to either, I think along the spine right here is that thin one on the bottom, or you can put like a larger sticker and put, what period of time you used it in, who it belonged to, et cetera, et cetera. That's like a nice little touch to have some way to organize it in hindsight. So you probably can't really tell in this light. I'll get a different angle of it somewhere else also. But you can kind of see here a little bit, like not super great. I'll try to get another shot later. That just kind of like difference of the cover break-in. This one right here is the one that I've been using this year. This is the brand new one. You can kind of see how the cover gets a little bit of texture on this one over here. And this one's just kind of like smooth, flat, matte. A little more shine on this one. You can see like fingerprints and stuff. This one's just brand new. Again, I think whatever material they use for the cover breaks in, again, really nicely. There's like a certain like grippiness that this one gets that I think is just nice and tactile and really good. And just feels like a really, really solidly made notebook. One other thing I will mention for those of you who like maybe fountain pens or just pens with a darker, thicker ink. There is a little bit, not a little bit, there's definitely bleed in these pages. I think that's kind of part of the trade-off of having a lot of pages in this and getting more like days of use out of it, is that the paper has to be, therefore, on the thinner side. I think it's like an 80 gram paper, 80 GSM. Yeah, it's an 80 GSM paper. And yeah, you can see I actually shifted earlier this year. I had been using a pen from Shinola with, I think it was a Schmidt ink cartridge in it. And yeah, you can, I don't know if you can super tell here. Again, I'll try to get a better shot of this later, but you can kind of see where the ink from the page behind it is bleeding into the page on the front of it. So I shifted to using instead a finer tip and a little more less aggressive ink from Muji, which are my favorite pens at this moment in time. They're excellent. They have a really, really good feel, and there's much less bleed as well, as you can see here. Just as a word of warning for anyone looking at these in particular, I think just making sure you're using a pen that works with this paper type just will make a better user experience in the end. So to kind of circle back again on some of the more existential, philosophical conversation around using notebooks and analog devices in general, I really would encourage anyone who's watching this or has been interested in potentially shifting any or all of their note-taking or to-do list organization for their business or their personal life over to something with pen and paper. Again, I just find so much personal gratification in being able to cross things out and go through checklists in a way that it feels like you're actually like accomplishing something versus just clicking a digital box on a digital checklist and just watching it go off into the ether. There's something that feels really, really cool about like even just keeping track of like, hey, this was the first 9 months of 2024 for me. And I can like put a label on the spine now and archive this. And if I ever need to go back, I can check it out and see what I was doing on any given day, really. I don't know, there's just something that feels really good about using it, for lack of a better word. There's something very satisfying in that process. So I think that's about it. Thanks so much for watching this video about this little Leuchtturm 1917 notebook. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna go break this new one in. And if you have any questions about them, please leave a comment down below. I will see you in the next video.